Every little thing you think that you need. Every little thing you think that you need. Every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.
All right, Ryan, before we dive into this special live episode, man, this was one of my favorite events. This one was in Indianapolis, but we had the person who might be my favorite musician right now.
Yeah.
He didn't just open up the show, but then we dragged him onto the podcast and talked about his podcast and talked about his album that's coming out today, actually. So this episode is coming out August 25th. And Andrew Belle is on this episode with us. And it was such a great time. I haven't listened to because we're recording this before the album comes out. I haven't listened to the album yet.
Well, it's funny because you just said it's coming out today, and I got so excited. I'm like, wait a minute, we're recording this for August 25th.
Right. I mean, we've heard a few of the singles that have come out so far, and they're so good.
Dude, he's the most intentional musician.
He really is. He takes 5 years to put together an album.
Unbelievable.
And he spends that whole 5 years working on the album.
Yeah.
It really is unbelievable. So Andrew Belle's new album is out today. It's called Dive Deep. You can get it wherever you get albums these days.
At your local CD connections.
In Middletown, Ohio. Ryan and I used to go to these overnight things. Remember in 1997 when Wu-Tang's Forever album came out?
Dude, I snuck out of my house.
That's right.
Your mom all rolled up with the lights off in my driveway.
My mom was such a bad influence.
No, she wasn't. She knew that it was no big deal and that my dad was
overreacting,
a little too strict.
Yeah, we went out to the midnight sale, and it was a school night too.
Yeah.
And we got Wu-Tang Forever's album at midnight when the CD Connection in Middletown, Ohio opened up. And I mean, I guess I don't know if there's a midnight sale for the Dive Deep album by Andrew Belle, but it's already after midnight, so you can go to iTunes or Tidal or Spotify or wherever you listen to your music these days. You can buy the album, you can stream it, check it out. In the podcast, we also mentioned that his last album, which came out, it was almost 5 years ago. I think it was like 4.5 years ago. It's called Black Bear. It's my favorite album in the last 5 years. It's the album of the decade so far.
Yeah, if it's not my number one, it's my number two.
Yeah, and so we brought him on the podcast. We also talked about his podcast that he puts out there, and it's a podcast that's different from any other podcast that I've listened to because it's a podcast about food, which you're like, how could you have a podcast about food? And you're a musician, but it's a podcast about childhood via food memories is the best way that I could describe it. It's called Stemma. We'll put a link to his album. We'll put a link to his podcast in the show notes. Before we dive into that episode, though, Ryan, let's talk real quick. We're hitting the road again next week, man. We're headed to Canada. And if you just listened to our last episode, which came out a few days ago, we went through all the dates. I'll just go through them really quickly. We have a bunch of special guests on many of these dates, but only a few tickets are left in Canada. We'll be in Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. Edmonton might be sold out. Actually, most of these might be sold out by the time this comes out. But you can head to lessisnow.com. It's called the Less Is Now Tour. Ryan and I give an in-depth talk about minimalism. And we also record a live version of the podcast. We dish out a bunch of hugs afterward. Almost all of Canada is sold out at this point, but find a few straggler tickets in there if you can. Lessisnow.com. From there, we're headed over to New York. We have 3 stops in New York City. 2 of those are sold out. Manhattan is sold out. Brooklyn is sold out. But we have a new stop set up in Brooklyn on September 20th.
Dude, I just got to mention that Scott from Charity Water is going to be at that first Brooklyn stop.
Yes.
So it's not sold out yet. And if you like Charity Water and if you've seen any of Scott's videos, I mean, he's an unbelievable character. So anyway, it's well worth the ticket.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, if you're in Montreal, our friend Julian Smith will be joining us in Montreal I know we had a bunch of folks from Montreal come to our Vermont stop. When we were in Vermont
that's right.
earlier this year. And so I talked to a bunch of people there who were like, yeah, and then I'll see you again in September. So a few tickets left in Montreal. Julian Smith, he's the founder of Breather. He's one of my favorite, most prolific authors, but then he stopped writing. And I want to talk to him about why he stopped writing and decided to start a business instead. So we'll record that on the podcast as well. Philadelphia on September 21st, and then we're headed over to Salt Lake City. Our friend Courtney Carver will be there with us October 5th. And the next night in Denver, that one might be sold out already. Go ahead and check if you're in Denver and you haven't gotten tickets yet. Denver might already be sold out. And then Phoenix, we have our friend Joshua Becker from Becoming Minimalist. He's going to be at the live show there and on the podcast. And then Texas, we have 3 stops in Texas: Austin, Dallas, and Houston. Austin is already sold out. Our friend Cruz Spence will be there with us, giving out relationship advice. And then we're going to be in the South, Ryan: Nashville, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, and Tampa. We have special guests at all of those. Nashville, Griffin House will be there playing music, but also talking about an amateur's perspective on minimalism. And then Washington, D.C., Cal Newport, famed professor, author, computer scientist, and all-around outstanding guy, is going to make us look like a bunch of children because he's so smart. We'll do our best to keep up with him in Washington, D.C. That's a huge theater, and that one's almost sold out. Atlanta, J.P. Sears will be making fun of us on stage for 90 minutes.
We're basically just getting roasted that night.
Yes. If you want to see a roast of the minimalists,
yes,
come to our Atlanta stop. There are still some tickets available there. Tampa might be sold out at this point. We're trying to find a few more tickets for that, or maybe even a bigger theater. I don't know if that's going to work. Head on over to lessisnow.com to check that out. We're trying to get our friends Brother Cephas to open up as well. My favorite music so far this year, I think, has been Brother Cephas's EP called Not That Important.
I have not listened to that yet.
You've got to check it out, man. It's so good. And then we're ending the North American tour in December. No better place than Detroit and Milwaukee. Bring your puffer jacket, Ryan.
You know, dude, it's going to be cold. I won't be able to wear my, barefoot shoes, my Zero shoes.
You could be like Wim Hof. He like scaled part of Mount Everest in like shorts and barefoot. I guess you could do that in Detroit. You might step on some glass, though.
I'm just happy we're going to Detroit, man.
Yeah, man. We've never had a tour stop in Detroit.
And we've always had, we've been close.
Yeah, we were in Ann Arbor.
Right. But we'll actually be in Detroit.
Did we go to Saginaw? No, we've never been to Saginaw.
Yeah.
We should do a tour stop in Saginaw. Screw Detroit. We're going to Saginaw, y'all. And then
we're not. We'll be in Detroit.
And then we're headed to Flint.
No.
And then Pontiac,
Josh,
Michigan.
Remember, we wanted this intro to be shorter.
Hey, why are you hating on Pontiac, Michigan?
I got nothing against Pontiac, Michigan.
All right. Well, if you're in Saginaw, you're in Pontiac, you're in Flint, come on down to the Detroit stop. And then, let's see. Milwaukee is where we're ending the year. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That is in Wisconsin,
Saving
right?
the best for last.
Yeah, well, that's not even the actual last, though, because then in March.
Well, the last for 2017.
Yes, but March 2018, we're headed on over to Australia, New Zealand.
I know. I'm so pumped.
Yeah, man.
I'm so excited to go back to it. We haven't been there since 2014.
No, it'll be almost 4 years.
Yeah.
So and our audience has grown
flies.
significantly, man.
Yeah.
In Australia. So we didn't have a podcast back then.
No, and we still were selling out. I mean, you remember, like, Sydney was our biggest tour stop, like, up to that point. Yeah,
we had 1,400 people there.
Yeah, it was nuts.
And so we'll be in Sydney, most likely. We'll be in Melbourne. We'll be in Brisbane. We'll be in Auckland, maybe some others as well. If you're on our email list over at theminimalists.com, you'll be the first to know. Actually, you'll be the second to know. The people who are the very first to know will be our Patreon supporters. You get an email before tickets are available even to the public. So Patreon supporters get first access to all of our events before they go on sale to the public. And by the way, we're doing a bunch of bonus episodes over at Patreon as well. So you can find those right now. You can find old bonus episodes. We're doing live streams. We're trying to do a bunch more short and experimental things. And that's all free if you are a Patreon supporter. Head on over to patreon.com/theminimalists, or you can just go to theminimalists.com, click on the donate button at the top. Anyone who supports us with $2 or more, you get access to all of those private podcasts that don't go out to the world, but Ryan and I, it's so much more freeing too. Like I feel like
I feel like I can say anything because it's such an intimate like group of people.
Yeah, we just get naked.
It's not
in
like a
room
million downloads. Yeah,
and turn the mics on and see what happens.
And we're like minimalism.
But it's so much fun to do those, and we can do short experimental ones. And by the way, if you support us on Patreon, none of that money goes to me or goes to Ryan. It goes to building a podcast and film studio, which is what we're working on. We want to do a lot more video content. If you loved our documentary, we're doing some mini documentaries. We're filming interviews. We're going to do a bunch of other cool stuff. We've got some other good announcements coming in the coming weeks. So make sure you subscribe to our regular podcast on iTunes or wherever. Actually, it's not even called iTunes anymore, man. They call it Apple Podcast. Do you think that's going to stick?
I don't care.
So wherever you subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to this, support us on Patreon if you can afford it. We really appreciate that. It keeps our podcast 100% advertisement free. Ryan, should we dive into this episode? It's called Deep, and it was in Indianapolis, Indiana at the Egyptian Room, which was honestly, it was my top 3 of all of our tour stops so far.
That is so funny how like you and I have
different tastes.
It was an outstanding tour stop.
I loved it, man.
But it was probably like one of my least favorite.
Wow.
Because there were so many outstanding tour stops. No, I'll tell you what made that tour stop, if it was to be one of my favorites. Well, actually, I'll say this. It was my favorite tour stop so far when it comes to the special guests that we have had.
Yeah.
And we've had some outstanding guests, but like Andrew Belle, dude, I'm just going to say it, man. The album Black Bear makes my heart sing, man.
Yeah, we played that out, but it doesn't get played out. It's the only album I've ever played out that
like you stop listening to it for a couple weeks, you can go right back to it.
Like it's if it was on cassette, like it would be that one cassette that just won't break.
Right.
Like even though you keep playing it over and over, and so man, yeah. I'm guessing I'm going to be doing the same thing with his new album, Dive Deep.
Yeah.
All right, check the show notes, y'all. We'll see you on tour really soon. We've got some other exciting news coming up. I think it's next week. It's in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about, we're moving somewhere. We're going to talk about it. We've been in Montana for the last 5 years. We're going somewhere else.
To be continued.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, y'all. We'll see you soon.
See you next time.
My name is Joshua Fields Milburn.
And I am Ryan Nicodemus. And together we are the Minimalists.
And we are live at the Egyptian Room in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, y'all. So we're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to answer some of your questions. We have a microphone set up somewhere over here, so whoever wants to break the seal. Here's what happens. There's always a trepidatious person, and they don't start. But there are like 500 plus people here tonight. We can't answer all the questions in the hug line afterward. And so now is the best time to ask questions. We'll try to get to 6 plus questions tonight. And but first, let's talk about touring real quick. Ryan, your hand right now looks like it took Viagra.
Yeah.
I mean, if that lasts for longer than 4 hours, consult your doctor.
I got stung by a wasp a couple of days ago, and it does look a little mutated right now.
Man,
a lot of fun stuff happens on tour.
We've been on the road, and crazy things happen. Someone hit me in a hit and run yesterday in Dayton, Ohio. Everything was fine. I don't even know if he knows that he hit me. It was like this big ass truck, and his wheel, his back wheel, just sort of took off half of the bumper on the rental car. And, he just kept going, and I was sort of left there, puzzled, scratching my head.
Yeah.
And
we had someone break into our car in San Francisco.
Yeah, that was last week, though. It was such an honor. Of all the cars on that street they could have broken into, they broke into ours. The idiots didn't realize we were minimalists.
Oh, man. It's so fun. I was walking out to get something out of the van, my sunglasses or something, and Podcast Sean had parked the car, and hey, where's the car? Oh, it's over on this street. Take a left. So I'm walking down, and I see this van with like a window busted out. And I was like, Those poor suckers. I was like, wait a minute, that's our van. Luckily, there wasn't too much in there. I think they got some of Matt Diavella's. He had some like tripods for his cameras, and they opened up all the boxes of books. I don't think any were missing though.
So don't worry, there's still some in the lobby afterward. No, seriously, if you can't afford a book tonight and you want to grab one of our books, we'd be happy to buy you a copy tonight afterwards. So we always hang out, and you're welcome to grab one if you can't afford it. Yeah, thanks. Just minimize it afterward, please. You can donate it to a local library or friend, family member, an enemy, someone. And what else happened? There was blood everywhere. Y'all already heard about that, though, right? There was a podcast episode called Blood Chocolate. I'll let you go back and listen to that. I bled all over a Love's bathroom for an hour. I won't give you any other details, but you can figure that one out. Howdy. What's your name? Where are you from? And what's your question?
Hi, my name is Rose. I am from Ottawa, Illinois. And I know.
Welcome.
Thank you. I really appreciate, Josh, that you do a lot of talking about being an introvert.
Uh-huh.
And
A lot of irony in that, huh?
I know, that's awesome. And I'm an introvert as well. So I have a wonderful gig. I am an elementary art teacher, which is wonderful. I get to be with a lot of kids, fostering creativity and watching their minds work, which is amazing. It's the best job. But as an introvert, I see 1,000 kids every week, and it drains me.
Yes.
So by the end of each week, I'm really exhausted from all of that. So here you are, Josh, on the road with seeing thousands of people all the time.
Yeah.
How do you balance doing these kinds of things and your introverted side to your personality and, don't become so depleted?
Yeah. It's an important question because I'm from Dayton, Ohio. I was driving around Dayton, Ohio yesterday before the big pickup truck hit me, and I was just remembering that. So one of the jobs that I did at one point, I was a regional manager for a bunch of retail stores in the greater Dayton area. So which is like Springfield, Ohio to Lebanon, Ohio is the general area, and I remember. I was driving around. It's very sprawling. Most Midwestern cities are pretty sprawling, and so sometimes it would take half hour and a half to get where I was going. But I remember my drives around Dayton being more pleasant than they should be. And I realize now, like in retrospect, like I'm looking in the rear view metaphorically at my 26-year-old life or whatever a decade ago, and I realized that was the only time in my days where I was alone. From the time that I woke up until the time that I went to bed, the only time that I was ever alone was when I was in the car. And I didn't realize that I was an introvert even, because I tried so hard not to be an extrovert, but to have constant contact with people, right? And I think part of that was good. In fact, part of it was uncomfortable. I don't think I could do this right now if I didn't turn 18 and go get a sales job right away. I went and got a sales job, and I was so freaking awkward for like the first year because I wasn't good at interacting with people. But it's just like any other pattern. Once you build that groove, you start to be able to. I'll never be a master extrovert, but I've learned how to be more socially competent through processes like that. The problem is when we overcompensate, and then of course I was spending 90%, 95% of my waking hours around other people, and that doesn't work. And so what I do now is I set expectations with the people closest to me, and they know, even with the people like absolutely close to me, Ryan or my partner Rebecca or Ella, our 4-year-old, it's hard to do this, but it's important to do it. I spend 80% of my time alone. And I carve that time out accordingly. It's harder to do that on the road, but it's still totally possible. And I find that that's important, not just for me, but for the other people, because that other 20%, I'm so much better. My partner Bex, she said the other day when I was playing with Ella in the backyard, she was making dinner, and I'm not a marathoner. I'm a sprinter when I'm with other people. And she had this observation. I realized, like, I'm really good in short bursts with other people. But if I'm forced to be around you for hours and hours and hours, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. I'll ask Josh out to dinner or something before a show, and he's like, no, like, I got to go walk around, man. Can I walk with you? No. I remember when his mom had passed away, the girl that he was dating at the time, he went down to Florida, and he told me, like, hey, man, I'm going to be gone for a week. Please don't call me, don't email me. And I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like, I've known him for so long. I know exactly where he's coming from and what he needs for himself. And the girl that he was dating calls me up, and she's like, Ryan, what's wrong with Josh? I'm like, his mother just passed away. Like, what do you think is wrong with him? And she's like, no, he told me that he didn't like want to, talk for a week, and that he needed some alone time. And I'm like, yeah, that's Josh. And she was like, Ryan, I know you're his best friend, but I am his girlfriend. And I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, that's who Josh is. And just as I'm hanging up the phone, I'm like, well, that's not going to last very long. But no, I think Josh brings up a good point. We all have needs, and when it comes to Josh and I's relationship, I know what his needs are, and I give him that alone time. And there are times where I need Josh's help working something out, and if he has the energy, he'll give me that need. But yeah, I think the give and take is what is super important with any relationship.
Thank you.
Thank you. Howdy.
Hi.
What's your name?
Erin, and I live in Westfield, which is about 20 minutes north of Indianapolis.
Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you for coming. It's so surreal to be here with you guys so close. Just puts a body with a disembodied voice on my podcast.
I've been told that I'm the voice in some people's heads.
Yeah, I believe it. So my question today is about goals. Because like so many of my peers, for the first 18 years of my life, the goal was to go to college. But then when you graduate college in your early 20s, it's like, well, that's it, good luck, and you're just kind of sent on your way. So I spent most of my 20s just kind of being aimless and wandering around, and I decided to fix it with the goal of going to grad school, but which gave me another goal, graduating. But I'm about 11 months out from that graduation, and I am terrified about what happens after. And I know I've read that essay that you wrote about goals, Life Without Goals for 100 Days, 17 times. But it still is scary about what comes next. So if you could maybe talk about what that looks like or how that feels, or maybe a little encouragement.
Sure. Well, let's talk about it first. So why are goals important to you?
I feel like it helps give me focus or something to resist against.
Okay. That's good. That's good. So maybe let's just change our language a little bit. We've been enculturated to believe that goals are a good thing. And I don't think they're inherently good or inherently bad. I think they're a thing, and sometimes they're a tool that help us. And so I did that experiment where I got rid of goals. It ended up being for 100 days. I didn't say how long at first because I didn't want that to be a goal. It seems like it defeat the purpose. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to live without goals. A friend of mine, Leo Babalta, had done it, and he had written about it. I'm like, this sounds interesting. And so, but before that, I of course, used to be the goal guy. I mean, I had goals for everything, spreadsheets and formulas, and I had sub-goals and consumer purchasing goals and vacation goals, fitness goals. I had so many goals, they stressed me out. And I felt like I was constantly behind, and it added to this layer of anxiety onto me. And I think most of those goals weren't actually helpful. They were anxiety producing. They didn't help me focus. They kept me scattered. And so there were a few goals that actually did help me when I focused on a few goals. So the way I like to look at it now is if I'm in a crater. So if I have debt, or I used to weigh 80 pounds more than I weigh now. The weight wasn't a goal, but being healthy and then defining what healthy was to me was a better goal. So getting out of a crater is really important. Once I'm out of the crater, though, I prefer to have a direction rather than a goal. So here's the way that you might want to look at it. Instead of saying goals, maybe what I would say is try to let go of your expectations. So that's the way I would reframe it. It's letting go of the expectations for the thing, because expectations breed discontent. And instead, raise your standards. And I'll give you an example. So a few years ago, my favorite thing that I've ever created is a book called Everything That Remains. And Ryan... Thank you, that person read it. Ryan and I moved to this cabin in the middle of nowhere, Montana, to write that book. And I didn't have a goal of, I'm going to finish this book. My standard instead was, I'm going to write for 3 hours a day, every day. It ended up being a lot more than 3 hours. There were times where it was 14 hours a day. But my standard was a pretty high one. Anyone who writes for 3 hours a day knows that you will get a lot more done than anyone else who is an aspiring writer and doesn't write at all. And so I found that my standard was for the quality of work, and it wasn't about completing the book. And in fact, Ryan and I have published 3 books together. I've also published a novel before, and it was never about finishing the book. It was about the standard of writing and doing it well, and not being married to perfection, because perfection will mean that it will never be complete. But being open to the idea of, I'm going to have a high standard, and as long as I can look myself in the mirror and say, I did the best job I could do given the resources I had, then I'm going to give myself permission to publish the thing or not publish the thing, whatever. But I'm more content with the work itself than I am with that expectation or that goal. And I can tell you this, though. Every time I have an expectation or a goal, it starts to stress me out. And it happens to me all the time. We all have expectations about something. I find expectations creeping into my life, and I want every single event to be perfect. I want we were in LA recently, and it was a truly outstanding event. We did a podcast with Andrew Belle, and he's great. I really look up to him, and his work has affected me in profound ways. And so I wanted this thing to go outstanding, and I had this expectation of how the night was going to go. And it was like 99% of the way there, and the whole next day I'm beating myself up because I didn't meet the goal, right? I was 99% to goal, but it was an outstanding evening. That's because my standards are high. So if I would have let go of the expectation before then, I would have had a better night, and I would have been more in the moment. I would have enjoyed it more.
Well, I would say your first goal, if you're in debt from grad school, would be to get out of debt.
Yeah, no, that's definitely on the list.
And I think that's what you should start with. At the end of the day, just to think about what your goals are going to be when you graduate is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. The more you stack on top of it, the more overwhelming it's going to be. I mean, for me, when I was done with that packing party and trying to pay off my debt and trying to save money, I took it just a piece at a time. It was like, okay, my car, I'm just going to focus on getting rid of this car payment. Okay, my home, I'm going to figure out a way to either sell this home or rent it out and get rid of this mortgage. I took the same approach when I was putting stuff on Craigslist and selling it. So I think when it comes to goals in general, like the biggest tip I can give anyone, and I tell my mentoring students this all the time, is just choose one goal. I have people all the time who come to me, they're like, well, I want to start eating healthy, and I want to start exercising regularly, and I want to start writing that book, and how can I find time to do all 3 of those things? And the honest answer is, you probably can't. There's probably someone out there who could do it, don't get me wrong, but that's a pretty tall expectation. And I do have friends who do approach things that way. Like when we moved to Phillipsburg in that cabin, the first person I really connected with there, she was an artist. She painted, she sculpted. She was a singer-songwriter. She was a writer, or I think I already said that, didn't I? No, I didn't. Yeah, she was a writer. So she had like these 4 things that she was really passionate about. And she was like, I just want to figure out how can I earn, an income from doing this stuff. And I told her, I'm like, you have to pick one thing. And when I said that, she's like, oh, I knew you were going to say that. She's like, I don't want to pick anything. I'm like, well, that's up to her, right? Like, it's just my 2 cents anyway. I mean, I am wrong sometimes, believe it or not. But, it turns out she took the same approach. She's at a point now where she is basically hosting these like poetry slam, open mic night type things, and then she'll bring in special guests. So she's basically, a booking agent for poets in Portland, Oregon. And she got there by having that approach. It was 6 years later before she finally felt comfortable, like, oh wow, like I'm actually, doing something that I like. I'm earning a little bit of income from it. But I always give her a hard time because I'm like, hey, if you would have approached it a little bit differently, you could have been doing this 3 years ago. But,
another lesson to learn from that is the thing she is doing right now to earn a living is something that sounds like she's passionate about. It doesn't sound like it was one of the 4 things she initially planned to do while she was back there in Phillipsburg either. And so also be open to pivoting in a way. I mean, this whole minimalist thing was a beautiful accident. And I never expected any of this. I never, ever expected to be recognized on the street unless, I was running from the cops or something. Yeah, there was no way. And so what I can tell you is just be open to pivoting. I wanted to write fiction, and so Ryan came to me with the idea of, why don't we write some nonfiction? And we didn't even know it was called a blog at the time. And so we started writing essays on the web. And yeah, so be open to that pivot. Have you read Everything That Remains?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I bought Essential tonight.
Oh,
so.
wow. Oh, I was going to give you a copy, but thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
It'll be gas money for your next adventure.
You're the best. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Howdy. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Erica. I am from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Hi, Erica. You mind
Hi.
moving that mic up just a tad? That way we can hear you.
From
You.
Indianapolis, Indiana.
Awesome.
I found your blog because I moved 6 years ago with only the items in my car to Atlanta, and I didn't know anybody else that survived after doing that. And so I was Googling and then I was okay. After I moved and I only had that stuff, I was like, I'm okay still. And so I started Googling purging, what is this thing? I happened up on your blog, so thank you for that. I just felt like I wasn't crazy.
No, thank you. Wait, real quick. It's amazing. We'll get people to come to our events sometimes, and they'll say, when I was going off to college 30 years ago, I remember I could fit everything in my car. When I first moved out for the first time, I could fit everything in my car, and it was the happiest time of my life. I just wish I could get back to that. And I just look at them like, well, why can't you? I mean, the truth is, we don't need to own nearly as many things as we thought or we needed to own or we think we need to own. We all need some stuff. Ryan and I aren't here to tell you to get rid of all of your things. And one person's life who's a minimalist is going to look different from another person's life. And you don't have to even be a minimalist. You don't have to use that word. But if you're looking to simplify, you might start to question, some of the things that will this fit in my car if I need to go? Or the other question was if your house was on fire, what would you grab in 30 seconds? Or if you had to move in 30 minutes, what are the things you would grab? That might help you identify what are some of the things that are most important. Erica, I've cut you off. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. So my question is about guilt. So I've always loved fashion, vintage, and thrifting and hunting for thrifted vintage stuff. And in so doing that, I resell items online, but periodically I feel guilty because I'm still bringing stuff in, even though I'm selling stuff. It's kind of business related, so I wanted some tips or insight when you aren't feeling minimalist enough, even though I like fashion.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with fashion. I say that line at the beginning of my talk about having the closets full of designer clothes. We were in LA recently, and that line got a woo. I just heard some woo, and I'm not judging that. You know, I if anything, I just identify with it, right? Because I had excess clothes. It doesn't sound to me like the things you're talking about are excess. Well, why do you feel guilty, you think?
Just the act of bringing things in, like,
Yeah.
and even though I sell them and ship some of them.
Yeah. Well, I know
like bringing-
I know a lot about guilt. I grew up Catholic. And so I can tell you this. Sometimes guilt is just a warning sign. And other times it's an unnecessary emotion. And we need to figure out, is this the good kind of guilt? Like, you know, if I went and robbed a bank today, I'm going to feel pretty guilty about that, right? And it's a warning sign to say, hey, you just did something wrong. But other times, the guilt might be saying to you is, someone else thinks I'm doing something wrong. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned is I care a lot less about what other people think, and I care a lot more about what I think. And I think it's important to break it down that way. Our producer, Podcast Sean, who's in the back, by the way. Ladies and gentlemen, Podcast Sean. He's hidden in the shadows as usual. He's really the man behind all the minimalism. He helps us out with everything, operations, tour, podcast. And his wife does that part-time. She spends probably 20 hours a week going out, buying things at thrift shops, and she ends up being the middle woman. Is that the appropriate vernacular? She's the middle person between the thrift shop in Missoula, Montana, and the person in Indianapolis who wants to buy the vintage jeans or whatever. You know, she sells the stuff on Poshmark, and because that adds value to other people's lives, she earns money from it. I think it's a noble thing. What you're doing is actually helping other people connect with other vintage items, which, by the way, is a really responsible way to buy clothes.
Recycling.
Yeah, this shirt I bought online used, and it was like $8. And doing that, it was like gently used. You know, someone probably wore it 3 or 4 times, and they got rid of it, didn't like it for whatever reason, and so someone else didn't have to recreate that thing and ends up in a landfill. I was able to use it, and I'll continue to use it until it has enough holes that I decide to get rid of it. But it's up to you to determine, am I feeling guilty because I'm doing something wrong, or am I feeling guilty because I'm afraid of other people's judgment?
Can I tell you where I heard the guilt in your question?
Please.
It was when you said, and sometimes I get rid of stuff. Which makes me think that, you know, maybe you do come across, like, I wish I could pull denim off. I love that jacket. But you know, maybe you come across an awesome denim jacket and you're like, man, this is really cool. Like, I really don't want to sell this. I will wear this. And you keep it. And I know that if I had that attitude towards clothes or anything, I would very quickly start having junk drawer number 6 and 7. I think when it comes to that guilt, like Josh said, I mean, be honest with yourself. Is it someone else judging you, or is it actually something that you need to look at? And if it is something that you need to look at, then incorporate some rules into your life that are going to help you at least get stuff out of the house. You know, I used to be like a big fan of the 1 in, 1 out rule. Mm-hmm. But I think that can be really dangerous too. So I'm kind of suggesting that, but I'm kind of not suggesting that. But
you could do 1 in, 10 out.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, I would say that the guilt is definitely there for a reason. It's figuring out where that guilt is coming from, and then acting on, if you do need to act on something, by incorporating rules. You know, Josh and I, we've got for those who don't know about the 90-90 rule, Josh and I came up with this thing where it's like, all right, I've got this thing. I open up, you know, my junk drawer, and it starts to overflow a little bit. And instead of creating junk drawer number 2, Mariah and I, we make sure that we have only one junk drawer in the house. So when it starts to overflow, I'll have this thing in there. Maybe it's like a USB cable. I don't even know what it attaches to. And it's just that. I'm like, wait a minute. I don't even know what this goes to. I know I haven't used it in the last 90 days. I'm probably not going to use it in the next 90 days. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of that. And it's incorporating things like that I think will help you feel less guilty moving forward.
Thank you.
Erica, have you read our book, Essential?
I have not.
Okay, I'd love to give you a copy. Jessica, you around here somewhere?
Yay.
There's 12 different chapters on intentional living. It's like 12 different areas of intentional living, and one of those areas is stuff, and I think you'll find value in it. Ladies and gentlemen, Jessica Williams.
Yeah.
Jessica is the woman behind the Minimalism. She runs a great podcast called The Mind Palace, by the way. But and also she does all of our social media stuff while we're on the road, which is really helpful. And she'll be in the back with us after we're with the merch as well. Before we move on to some more questions, for the folks listening to this at home, if you have a comment or tip for anyone who's asking a question today, you can give us a call, leave us a voicemail at 406-219-7839, or you can also send a voice memo right from your phone. Email it over to podcast@theminimalists.com, and we will air our favorite comments and tips on a future episode. Ryan, do you know what time it is?
Oh, yeah, man.
Tell me.
It is time for our hashtag Ask the Minimalist lightning round.
This is where we answer questions usually from social media. We're at the Minimalists on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. But since you're here tonight, you're going to ask a regular question, and usually we have a while to give you a really pithy answer, but we'll maunder on until we get something that's pithy that is tweetable for the evening. By the way, Jess usually does some live tweeting tonight, so you can find a lot of the things that we talk about tonight, the pithy version. That's always in the show notes as well. So you can give us your question, normal question. You'll get a normal-ish answer with a bow on top.
Okay. First of all, my name's Amy Adams. I
Hey, Amy
am
Adams.
from 3 blocks away. And
I love that band.
it's rather unfortunate timing with the lightning round. I had a comment. I'm the community leader of the Indianapolis meetup group.
That's
Awesome.
perfect. Yeah.
I just wanted to say hi to everybody and let everybody know to go to minimalist.org and click on Indianapolis. That will take you to our Facebook page. And you can join our group. We have meetings every month, and we do some fun things too, like game night or happy hour. So it's a fun group, and we get to talk about things like this. So while you're still feeling inspired by these two gentlemen, because I know you will be, please look us up and join our group.
Yeah, for sure. So Amy runs the local group here. In 2014, Ryan and I went out to 100 cities, did a 100-city tour, 119 events. So we basically donated a year of our lives to get out and spread this message. And the crowd started to grow, and people would come up and say, how do I connect with open-minded people locally? And I'd always say, I don't know. And so we left behind 100 local meetup groups in 100 different cities, and this is one of them. Amy, thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you very much, Amy.
And I do have somewhat of a question, too. If
Certainly.
That's okay. Mine deals with relationships, and we're talking about being intentional about physical items that we bring into our lives. But how can you be more intentional about the relationships that you invite into your life? Because I'm kind of a friendly person, and I make friends with people very easily, and the next thing I know, I have friends, not friendly, and that's more demanding on my time.
What do you? Well, let me just expand on that. What do you mean you have friends not?
Rather than just an acquaintance that I say hello to and that's good enough,
Sure.
It turns into, hey, let's go get coffee. Hey, let's go to this movie. Hey, let's get together and spend some time together.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, it's good enough to say hello and how are you and let's chat about this thing that interests us both and then move on our way.
Yeah. So my pithy answer, I'll start with that, and then maybe I'll unpack it a little bit. My pithy answer for you. We call these minimal maxims, by the way. I think the answer is that I'm trying to tweet it in my head here. Don't mistake quantity for quality. The people who are closest to me in my life, this is my unpacking at this point, the people who are closest to me in my life, they don't necessarily, I don't see them every day. I have some close friends that I see once a year. I have some close friends who I see once a month, and that's okay. Ryan and I don't even hang out that much. I go on tour just so, I think he goes on tour so he can hang out with me. And I think it's okay, and it's really about setting those expectations. Let the other people know what else you're saying yes to instead of just saying no. The worst thing you could tell someone is, "Can't, I'm busy." That just means your life's out of control. But if instead, because busy just really means that I have no control over my daily activities. Instead, let them know. Like if Ryan, like today, Ryan did ask me to go to dinner with him, and I said, I'm really going to enjoy walking around right then, at that time. And he's like, all right, cool. And the people who care most about you will understand.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to ramble until hopefully I get a good, pithy answer. But it sounds to me like you are the one saying yes to all this stuff. They're asking you, hey, yeah, do you want to go grab a movie? And maybe they're a really cool person. If you're telling someone yes, though, when it is a detriment to yourself, like if Josh would have said yes, earlier, I haven't been out to dinner with Ryan in a while, and I really should go walk around, but I'm going to tell him yes anyway because I don't want to hurt his feelings. First off, I don't want Josh to make that decision. Like I want him, when he tells me yes, I want him to mean yes. I certainly don't want a pity dinner. But that's my pithy answer. I don't want a pity dinner.
Pity tastes awful.
No, I guess what I'll say is, regardless of whether you tell your friends yes or no, as long as you're honest with them, that's what really matters.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Howdy.
Hello.
What's your name?
I'm Kim.
Hey, Kim.
And I live about 8 blocks due east of here.
Do I hear 10 blocks?
Yeah. First, do you do interventions? No, I'm just kidding.
What do you think this is?
Intervention. Actually, I've been standing here in line thinking, like, oh my God, there's so many things I could ask. So I'm just kind of curious to keep my question short in that, what year did you say you guys started kind of this trek? Like, how long has this been?
Circa 2009.
Okay, so I was just curious, to what extent, if any, did the housing, banking crash and all that in 2008, did that kind of help you, like, oh, we're on the right path here kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think that life goes in cycles, right? And so 2008 was a strange year because in the corporate world, in 2008 is sort of when I had reached this pinnacle. I was a director of operations for a whole bunch of retail stores in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And once the crash happened, like we had to start downsizing. And it was a weird thing that happened to me. It was late 2010. We had gone through several rounds of downsizing, and I got really good.
Josh.
What?
It was right sizing.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what they told me. That was actually the language HR encouraged us to use. We were right sizing. I've got some good news. You've been right sized. I had to go through. I got really good at firing people, basically laying them off, and never enjoyed it. But it becomes something you get used to over time. And there was finally toward the end of 2010, after several of these cycles, my boss came to me. It was a few weeks before Christmas, and he said, "Well, we have to close eight more stores." And we have to lay off 42 people. You have 2 weeks to put together a plan, and we're going to tell everyone as soon as the holiday shopping season is over. And I said, okay, I can do that. I've done it before. And but I had never laid off 42 people at a time. Like I had laid off that many before, but like in small chunks. It's like there are these drug mules who carry drugs over the border from Mexico to the United States, and they'll give them like 100 balloons filled with heroin, but they don't give them 100 balloons to swallow at once. They just give you 4 balloons to swallow, and then they put 4 more on the table. This time, he put all the balloons on the table and said, I need you to get rid of these 42 people. And you have 2 weeks to put together a plan. So I did. I went home, and I was working on the plan. I had this spreadsheet, and I had all these names in the spreadsheet of like, based on the data. I was going to let the data tell the story, right? Whoever the 42 people we needed to get rid of, the data would tell me who. And I got to that, but then it didn't feel right because these weren't just names on a spreadsheet. These were fathers and husbands and daughters and mothers and friends and family. They were people. And looking at it on just a spreadsheet was looking at a rainbow in grayscale. And so I put together the plan in 2 days, and my name was the first name on the list. And so I laid myself off. I said, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't align with the person I want to become. And so I think sometimes tragedy, whether it's a downturn, this is my short answer, by the way. Sometimes tragedy illuminates the path.
It's good, man.
Thanks.
Man, I had so much time to think about something, and I was definitely affected. I tried to sell my house. I was so upside down on it that, and this was a few years after the crash. And it was crazy because, like, in 2008, I was renting, and then I had a friend who sold houses. This was, I think I bought that house in 2010, so it was a couple years later. And they were telling me, like, now's the time to buy. Like, the prices are low, not everything is bounced back, but it is bouncing back. It can only get better from here. And it did not get better for my property. It kept losing value. So when I went to go sell it, it was impossible to get what I owed out of it. So I ended up renting it, and I still it was like a net negative $100. So I essentially had to pay like $100 a month after my tenant paid their rent.
You had to pay $100 a month to rent your house to people.
Yes. Yeah, it was crazy.
Solid investment.
Mm-hmm. And what I'll say though is I was really glad though that this thing called minimalism came into my life, because it really helped me to regain control of my finances, to regain control of my time. So that $100 a month, it was a lot of money. I was able, because of the habits and this philosophy I had brought into my life, I was able to do that. I really wish I would have started sooner. That's people always ask me, like, well, what's the one thing? Is there anything you regret? And I'm like, yeah, I really wish I would have started so much sooner. Like, the most encouraging thing we've had happen on this tour. This is totally an aside, so I'm sorry I'm like derailing this question. But we were in San Diego, and we were going out with for the meet and greet line to hand out hugs. And as we're walking up to the front of the line, there's this couple who has a daughter, and they're like, go on. And she like came up to us, and she's like, I'm 5. I'm like, cool. And she was like, I just donated a bunch of my clothes. I was so taken back by this. And I'm like, wow, here's a 5-year-old girl. Like, she is so much further ahead than me. Like, I really wish I would have started. So, all right, I got a pithy answer. And I do say this a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Start incorporating minimalism into your life now before you're forced into becoming a minimalist.
Thank you.
We have time for one more, and so we'll answer one more question. I want to apologize to the other folks in line. I promise you will get a hug afterward. Howdy, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Marissa.
Hey, Marissa.
I'm from South Bend, but I'm currently moving down to Fort Wayne, so I'm kind of from two places.
Nice.
I actually have an observation and then a question. As I'm moving and unpacking in my fiance's house, I have been listening to the Minimalists and the Mind Palace, and let me tell you, I get rid of a ton more shit when I'm listening to you guys than if I'm just listening to the radio. Just in case stuff is out the door. All right, so I had just graduated from college. I paid my way through college, so I am completely debt-free.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, I think debt-free, like that is the new American dream. Like that to me is that's freedom right there. Congratulations.
Thank you. And it took me 7 years, but I did it. And I have graduated with an English degree because I am an aspiring writer, and a minor in dance. And I'm trying to figure out, with me moving into this brand new place, Fort Wayne, when I found out I was graduating, they were forcing me out. I went to the library and cried because school had been my safe place for these 7 years, and now I'm done. And I'm trying to figure out how to cultivate my passions and to actually move forward with my life outside of school and my safe place. Do you guys have any advice?
Yeah. So the thing that's safe about college or factory work or anything in that vein is that it's regimented, right? It's you're told what to do, when to be there, when to raise your hand, when to speak, and it's a type of cage in a way, right? It's a well decorated cage. Oh, here's my pithy answer for you then. It's it's like a light bulb just turned on. The bird who enjoys her cage still isn't free.
Oh, I thought you had something. You were done. Dude, those are expensive mics, man. Do not drop that mic. No, that was awesome, man. Yeah, I think when it comes to cultivating passion, you've got to start somewhere. So you've had this routine essentially that was laid out for you, and it is hard to come up with your own routine. There's no doubt about it. And it will take some trial and error, but the advice I will give you is start figuring out what that routine is. And it sounds to me like you're going to have some time to cultivate a passion. Do you have anything standing out that you really want to cultivate?
My long-term goal would be to someday open up my own dance studio, and to be a published author. And now that I'm done writing my papers for school, I have started actually writing my novels and stuff again. And I'm trying to find dance studios in Fort Wayne that I can start attending and building up sort of my repertoire for moves and different people that I can rely on to help me get better and stuff.
Cool. It sounds like two goals, two really big goals. And what I was saying earlier, I would definitely say you've got to choose one. Yeah. That's awesome. You said you already are writing. Mm-hmm. So you've kind of already started, cultivating that passion. Yeah, I think that I think you're going to be okay as long as you can figure out how to find that time that you were once spending at school, and start writing more. Man, I'm really struggling here to come up with a pithy answer. It'll come to me. Hold on. Okay. I'm not done yet.
I was gonna jump in.
Oh, go for it.
No, I was gonna give you a lifeline.
Thanks, man.
What show
Can I phone
that?
a friend?
Do you need one that's climate controlled?
Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Oh, just No, I'll give you. I was trying to give you a pithy answer.
Oh, yeah. No, so your question is about cultivating passion. If you just sit around and aspire, there's going to be aspiration everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to the rest of the line, folks. I really do apologize. We have to move on. I'm way over on time to our added value segment of the show. This is where Ryan and I talk about things that have added value to our lives recently. And since we're in Indianapolis, let's do a little local flair. Ryan, what's been adding value to your life here in Indy?
Well, first off, you got to give it up for the Egyptian Room. Is this an amazing venue or what? Yeah. So, Josh and I, when we lived in Ohio, we would drive to Indianapolis all the time to see concerts, and a lot of them were here. There's another venue called Radio that has some cool shows going through it too. But that's a cool place I would definitely check out. I ate at this restaurant earlier today called 3 Carrots. It was this vegan vegetarian place over in the Indianapolis City Market. Am I saying that right? Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, I saw, because God love Mariah, she has so much like digestional gut flora stuff going on, and so many allergies that like I saw this vegan vegetarian place, and I was like, okay, like they're probably gonna have some stuff for her. Jessica's got some similar stuff going on. I'm just going to tell about everyone's medical issues on stage, apparently. But anyway, no, we went there, and I wasn't like super looking forward to it because, well, I started eating meat a couple years ago, and I mean, I love me a nice, big, juicy hamburger sometimes, you know? We went there and for dietary restriction issues, and I was just like blown away. So good. Although it always disturbs me a little bit when they can take a soy product and make it taste better than like what the soy product is supposed to represent. Like they have these little, I forget what the name is on the menu, but it's like little buffalo wing bites. It's better than chicken. I mean, it's so good. But yeah, those 2 places for sure. Actually, before I hand this off to you, I just want to say thank you to Mariah, who's on tour with us right now. She's just an awesome partner. And all I can say is, for those of you out there who have amazing partners, you've got to like wake up and say thank you every day. And you've got to figure out a way to go to that partner and show them that you appreciate them every day. This is the first time I've ever had a relationship that was this amazing. And what she sacrifices to go on the road with us, or if I have to leave her for a couple weeks, it makes all the difference in the world. So thanks, Mar.
Thanks, Mar. Ryan, you mentioned I've seen so many concerts here, but also at Radio was the first time that I saw Andrew Belle perform. Y'all saw Andrew Belle open up the show today. How about Andrew? So can I tell you this? We're actually going to bring him out here in a second and have him play a little something. Ryan and I, we don't always have the same taste in music, but both of us will tell you the best album of this decade is his last album that came out. It's called Black Bear, and it's just such an honor to have him here tonight. And he's got a new album coming out August 25th. It's called Dive Deep, and we're going to bring him out here right now. He'll sing the title track from that album.
Thanks, guys. That album of the decade, that's a tall order to live up to, but...
Well, you have 2 months to live up to it.
Yeah, right. But yeah, I really appreciate that a lot. This is my last song. It's called Dive Deep, and I'm just honored to be able to be here tonight with Joshua and Ryan playing in front of all you guys. Thank you for listening, and yeah, here goes. This is my heart, dive deep. You have something that I wanna keep. We get carried away. Don't stop. I've got nothing but time. Come on, where you wanna start? Oh, I don't wanna stay. How about you run your fire escape? But you won't let me go. I say just on your stereo, we started a feed. Started a tidal wave with a spark, and I don't know you. Are you sticking around, or you just passing through? This is my dive deep. You have something that I wanna keep. We get carried away. Don't stop. I've got nothing but time. Come on, when you wanna start. And when I disappeared, New York felt wrong without you, dear. My future's in your lap. Your colors in my photograph. We started a feud. We started a tidal wave with a spark, and I don't know you, but you're what I want, and that's all. You're what I want. This is my heart. Dive deep. You have something that I wanna keep. We get carried away. Don't stop. I've got nothing but time. Come now when you wanna start. And I wanna be honest when it hurts to be honest. And I'm hoping you start. Pull me into your heart, and then we'll write on the wall. You're what I want, and that's all. You're what I want, and that's all. You're what I want. This is my heart. Dive deep. You have something that I wanna keep. We get carried away. Don't stop. I've got nothing but time. So go down when you wanna start. Go down when you wanna start. This is my dive deep. This is my dive deep.
Thank you.
We're gonna get Andrew to stick around for a minute. You got a few seconds to chat with us? Awesome. So, if you can just hand him that mic, Sean, that'd be great. Beautiful. So, man, I've seen you live maybe 3 or 4 times, and it's different every time.
Where have you seen me at?
Once I flew to San Diego just to see you.
Spokane.
Yeah, Spokane. We drove out to Spokane. We live in Missoula, Montana. So
Yeah.
like the closest city's Spokane.
You were
and
with Amy.
Oh yeah. At the Bartlett.
Yeah.
yeah. And then here and in
Wow.
Indy, we were at Radio.
Wait, wow.
Yeah, man.
That was a while ago. I haven't played.
Yeah, it was probably a decade ago. It was a while ago. But anyway, Andrew's album that comes out this year, I'm really looking forward to it. If you haven't checked out Black Bear, it's a phenomenal album. Like, Ryan and I play out albums all the time when we're on the road, and that's one like it won't play out.
No.
It's like the cassette won't break.
Well, and then like he followed it up with like some hushed, like some more acoustic, like of some of the songs on there, and it's like it seriously is the only album Mariah and we can just listen to it on repeat and like never get tired of it.
Man.
All right,
Really flattering.
Yeah, we'll do enough flattery here. But you have a really interesting podcast, man. You started a podcast recently. It's called Stemma.
Yeah.
And I'm fascinated by the concept, and also I'm fascinated by the way that you edit it.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So can we talk about the concept of the podcast?
Yeah.
Because it's unlike anything that I've heard.
Well, so I've been doing music now for like 10 years. My wife is a chef. She went to culinary school. And so she's bounced around in kitchens and stuff. And you know, I've always loved to eat, but through our relationship, I've become what I describe as like like an amateur enthusiast in food. You know, I don't know, I'm not like a chef by any means, but I love to cook, and we cook together. And she's, you were talking about, your partner's making sacrifices for you. My wife does that very same thing. I mean, she's kind of a little bit foregone a career in food to be able to be flexible enough to come travel with me on tour and the road. And so for that reason, we've always thought, what's a way that we can marry our love for food and for music? And people, artists, friends of mine are always coming through town on tour, and somehow they're always ending up at our house, maybe on the couch or whatever. And there's always food involved, and just amazing stories inevitably happen. when you're eating a good meal and you're talking about where people come from and getting to know them and learning about them. Through they'll be saying, oh, this reminds me of this, or I've got a great story about, when I was growing up and my favorite meal. And so we were hearing so many great stories over the years, we thought there's got to be a way to document this. And first we thought maybe a blog with maybe video content and stuff like that, but editing video is...
Pictures of cats. You need lots of pictures of cats.
Videos, yeah. Anyways, it took us many years to figure out that basically the best format in which to deliver these stories to an audience who wants to hear them would be a podcast. My wife loves probably her favorite thing in the world is to hear people's stories about where they come from and how they've gotten to where they are today. And food plays such a big role in that, in defining, in shaping you as an early, child in your family, and the food that maybe your parents cooked growing up, and how that kind of your taste develops, and then today, the food that you're interested in now. And we just found that there's so many interesting stories to be told. So we started interviewing artists, and we put out a podcast called Stemma, where basically we just, every episode is a new singer-songwriter or artist of some kind. We're thinking about expanding that beyond songwriters. We just interview them. Where are you from? If you had to choose one dish growing up that sort of defines your childhood, what would that dish be? And then we talk about that, and we talk about where they like to eat on tour. And
it's like a food podcast, but it's not really about food. It's about memories found through the vehicle of food, in a way.
Yeah.
And to me, I find that for me, food isn't entertainment, but it can be that vehicle, because my partner is also just a phenomenal cook. She has a great blog called Minimal Wellness, and she creates these experiences that centers around food, but it's not the food that is always the most memorable thing. It's the most delicious thing, and it's my favorite restaurant in Missoula is our kitchen. but I found that what I remember most are the experiences we have around that food. And you find a way to capture it. And the way you edit the podcast is you have this conversation with them, but then it almost turns into this monologue, the way that you edit it. They're reciting their childhood memories and going back to their hometown. And you did one with Matt Wirtz recently, and he's just talking about being back in the Midwest and reliving the childhood sort of through that sensory experience of taste and smell and what it's like to dive deep into one's childhood.
I mean, everybody has an interesting story about where they come from, and everyone has a story about that favorite meal that their mom or dad made for them growing up. And I basically edit it the way that I do, because I don't I tried doing the back and forth question and answer thing, and I just thought I sounded like an idiot. So I just edited myself out completely, and then I just narrate the top and at the end, and I let them just be the feature of the podcast.
It's really great. So check it out. It's called Stemma. It's on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts. We'll put a link to it in the show notes as well. Andrew, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Guys, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Notice how I didn't give him one more hug. I didn't want to creep him out.
They're transferable, so you can always pass them on to someone else. What do they say? You need six hugs a day for happiness, 12 a day for growth. It sounds like a bullshit study, but like I'll totally buy into that. The cool thing is every time you give a hug, you get one too. Real quick, let's move on to right here, right now. We'll talk about what's going on in the lives of the Minimalists. Ryan and I are on a 40-city tour. It's called the Less Is Now Tour. We're in Indianapolis right now. If you take any photos, you want to share anything online, you want to see other people sharing things, use the hashtag #LessIsNow. That's the name of the tour. And if you're listening to this at home and you want to come see us in any of those 40 cities, you can find all the cities over at lessisnow.com. Also, this is usually the part where we talk about all of our sponsors, right?
What mattress are we promoting today?
Someone cackled. That's an avid podcast listener. I have a friend who said that podcasts were invented as a conspiracy just to sell mattresses. For those of you who listen to other podcasts, they seem to be all over the place. Either that or like there's food delivery services, Ryan. We could always talk about that.
Or underwear.
Yes. Sweat wicking underwear, everyone. Here's the truth. You hear 5,000 advertisements a day. And we don't want you to hear 5,001. And it costs us a lot of money to do that. In fact, the amount of advertisers that we turn down at this point, we get 3 million or so people a month that listen to the podcast, is astounding. So if you want to support the Minimalists podcast, you can do that. You can just go to theminimalists.com. You can click on the donate button there. We set up something called Patreon, so you can donate on a per episode basis. And I just want you to know that none of that money goes to me or Ryan.
Wait. I thought we were getting minimalist jets. I need crisper black t-shirts, man.
No, the truth is that it does cost a lot of money to do some of the things we want to do. We're trying to open up a podcast studio. We want to do some more experimental things with the podcast. We want to do shorter episodes, longer episodes, bring some guests on. We also want to do some videos. We want to hire a full-time filmmaker. We also want to be able to continue to pay Podcast Sean a full-time living wage. His family and 3 kids will certainly appreciate that. And so we don't make any money off the podcast other than what you do to support it. So if you want to head over to theminimalists.com, click on donate, join the Patreon, folks. We have over 500 patrons right now. That list is growing, folks. And we also give away some exclusive podcasts and different exclusive live streams to the folks there. We want to do a whole lot more with video. We want to do a whole lot more with podcasts, but only if we have enough people willing to support us. So we're looking for about 1%, a little less than 1% of our audience to be able to contribute in some way, and we'll be able to use that money to do something really cool. I want to thank some folks before we head out of here. We'll be back there in about 20 minutes or so, and we'll say hi if you want to stick around. Come up and say hi. We thank Sean. We thank Jessica. We thank the theater. Oh, we thanked Andrew. You know who else we should thank? You.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being here tonight. You know what? It costs you some money to show up here tonight, and we're grateful for that. It allows us to rent a really awesome theater like this and pay all the staff and the security and all of those things. But you gave up more than your money. You gave up your time and your attention. And those are your 2 most precious resources. And we're grateful you decided to spend an evening with us. And so if you leave here with just one message, we hope it's this. Love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Indianapolis.
Hi, my name is Taylor, and I'm from Tampa, Florida. I was listening to the nostalgia episode, and as someone who's a younger minimalist, I don't have a whole lot of things necessarily, but I did have a lot of T-shirts that I had accumulated from high school and also from college events, and they all do trigger a lot of great memories for me, but they were really clogging up my closet. And so from the transition, after college, I actually took all of the T-shirts and cut them up and made a no-sew blanket. So I'd suggest that anyone who has a lot of T-shirts, that would be a useful way for them to get a use out of them. It's a great size. It's small. I can travel with it when I go across the state or when I get on air. Just keep all those little things that might trigger nostalgia about an event you went to or about maybe a club you joined without having the extra bulk.
Hi, Josh and Ryan. This is Bianca speaking. I'm calling from the Netherlands. I have a tip for Ryan and his double swimming trunk dilemma, and a travel tip in general, I hope. Ryan told us he didn't like packing an extra set of swimming trunks, just in case the first one got dirty on the trip. Personally, I like to use Dr. Bronner's All-One Cast Iron Soap. I have to add that I am in no way, shape or form affiliated with this company. Dr. Bronner sells pure cast iron liquid soap, which can be used for over 18 different purposes. You can use this to clean your face, body, hair, dishes, laundry, the whole shebang. So while you're traveling, you'll only need this soap. And Ryan, you can hand wash your swimming trunks. I also love this company for using organic and certified fair trade ingredients, plus they're packaged in recyclable bottles. I really like their philosophy on how to treat the earth and their suppliers. I think this will appeal to many fellow minimalists. I hadn't heard a recommendation on Dr. Bronner's soap before, so I hope this will help some of you out there.
Hi, this is Linda in Kansas City, Missouri, responding to the podcast about nostalgia. I donated my yearbooks to the Midwest Geology Center. They were happy to receive them. I also plan to donate some historical regional history books for Wabunsee County, Kansas and the like, because they contain histories of the people who migrated and settled the area. This way they are resources for other people, and I'm not the custodian.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it. Every little thing that you gotta have, every little thing that you gotta have, you gotta reach for, and you gotta grab. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it. So tear your eyes away, or tear